Hi guys, welcome to Raggy's Bikes. This is the third part of my video where I'm continuing the review of my 2004 Kawasaki ZZR600. I'm going to be covering things such as the features of the bike, the suspension, and lastly my personal experiences with this bike. So let's dig straight into it. Features. So this particular bike actually has a lockable glove box. So essentially this is a small glove box, but you can actually store small things such as keys, a small snack. It's pretty nifty actually having something like a lockable glove box. The bike also has luggage hooks, which I currently don't have, but essentially the reason why you have luggage hooks, and this is only seen in bikes of this era, is because you can actually put something on the seat and you can use a bungee and actually just secure it. It also has bungee hooks at the bottom, but you can still use the luggage hooks as such. Now, if you remove the seat, you actually have a lot of space, as you can see. Basically, you have a storage compartment. It's got a toolbox, and you can store a lot of other things. So I actually usually store a puncture repair kit and a few other knickknacks at the back and a few rags. Those are essentially the features of the ZZR. It also has a helmet lock that you can actually put through. The helmet lock is just to secure, your riders, your passengers or the pillions helmet if you like. So those are the features, so to speak. Moving on to suspension. Now, the suspension is an interesting topic. The D1 and up until the E series, I think the 1998s actually started getting suspension upgrades. So until then, the suspension was not really adjustable by any shape of imagination. From 1998 onwards, basically Kawasaki introduced spring preload and rebound, which is essentially these two that you're looking at. And basically you can dial in or dial out the preload, and you can actually use the screw to actually dial in and dial out the rebound. So you can adjust the way the suspension can rebound. So that is the front. The rear actually has, again, it's a very basic rear suspension. Basically what it has is a damping force adjustment at the very bottom. Apologies, we can't really show you the damping force adjustment, but essentially a damping force adjustment is there. That is just to smoothen the ride if you'd like. And it also has a spring preload that you can adjust from the top. All that it can be accessed via a C-spanner, but that is what the suspension is. Now, I'll move on to the last section of this review, which is my personal experience. And I think that is the most important one, because all the things that I've just talked about in the first two videos and even in this, you might have heard or you can read through forums. But here's my personal experience of this bike. I really like this bike. I know that I've got a Super Sport, I've got an Enduro, but there's something about this bike. It's got some different character to it. The things that I've done to it since from owning, and that may vary from person to person and their riding ability, is I've changed I've done a lot of suspension work on it. So if you need any help with regard to the suspension, or if you have any questions, please put a comment in. But essentially what I've done is in the front, I have actually put a progressive springs. Because the suspension is a damping rod. The damping rod suspension is one of the most basic suspensions, and the biggest gripe on the front suspension for this bike was that it was diving pretty easily and very, very quickly. So it never inspired confidence when you're going into the corner at high speed, when you're trying to shave the speed by the use of front brakes. The nature in which it used to dive, to me, never really inspired a lot of confidence. So I've modified the front suspension by putting progressive springs in the front, and also put an emulator valve on the top, which kind of gives a little bit of compression damping. So that is in the front. The rear, I've also done some suspension work on the rear. So all I have done is kept the shock internals the same, but just gone with a heavier spring. So I weigh close to about 90 kilos, and the bike has been set up for my rider plus luggage weight, and also factoring in the pillion. What that has done is that has completely transformed the way in which this bike handles. I've also noticed that as soon as the rear shock upgrade was done, I've noticed that the bike's jacked up from the rear by about 20 millimeters. So what that actually does is, by raising at the back, it actually allows steering of the bike much more quicker, so you can drop into the corners much better. I've done a track day on this bike, and the way it handles is phenomenal now. The way it used to handle prior to the suspension change was never that confidence inspiring. I never could drop the bike so quickly and easily into corners like the way I'm able to do now. So it is definitely a worth investment, especially if you think of owning this bike for some time. The other changes I've also done is a headstem bearing. So the bike's done close to about 56,000 kilometers. You would have seen the mileage in my part 2 of the video, but essentially it needed headstem bearings. So what I actually did the suspension work and also did the headstem bearing work. But it was funny because after we did the suspension work, that's when we noticed the headstem bearing was on the verge of going. It wasn't completely gone, but it's those little things that you start to notice as soon as the bike's been set up. You start to notice that, and headstem bearing was one. So I've done the headstem bearings. I've also added traction pads, as you can see, the black one. It's just to grip the knee, the legs a bit more better. It's just a personal preference for me. I've just added that, and I've found out that it has immensely improved my control on the bike and the way I move around the bike. The last thing that I actually had to get it done, and again, this is not, this depends on the usage, is the rear master cylinder, the rear brake for the master cylinder. It started to leak lightly, and I've gone ahead and done a rebuild on it. I'm not very mechanically competent, so most of these upgrades that I just talked about is essentially carried out by well-qualified service person. The bike also came with a custom seat. So the custom seat is actually a gel seat. It is extremely comfortable, long rides, short rides. I've never had issues with my seat as such, but this was an optional extra that was just given, and I just took it because it was there. The bike also came with foot peg lowering block, as you can see. It was not to my personal preference, again, so I've just removed it, and the way in which the foot peg is that natural position that I actually like, but the bike also came with foot peg lowering blocks. The other thing that I just also wanted to share is something that I've heard about, common problem of a ZZR, which is the gearbox. I have heard a lot of people, or rather read in different forums, that the gearbox of the ZZR can be a little troublesome, especially the second gear, because the bike's rev happy. It goes all the way till about 14,000 RPM as a red line. So the bike is under a lot of stress in terms of the gears. So what I have heard about is the second gear popping out, I think. Luckily on my bike, I haven't faced that trouble, but this is something that I just wanted to share as a common gripe. That's all I had, folks. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hopefully this was helpful to you. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment on the video. Thank you so much. Cheers. Bye.